So when I was 10 years old, I went to a summer camp, and it wasn't your typical summer camp. It was this weird summer camp where it was run kind of like a commune. It was supposed to be like this socialist paradise where no one could have anything more than anyone else. And this created sort of this inherent conflict, because on the one hand, you had the kids, like me, and you know, we were typical kids, always caring about like candy and cookies and ice cream and toys. We were very materialistic. And on the other hand, you had the counselors, who were these like college student hippies. And you know, these days a lot of people throw the word hippie around. This is 1967, so these are like the gold standard of hippies. They were totally into it, and they wanted to change the system. And they had authority over us, so they liked to mess with us as well. So the way the camp worked was nobody was allowed to have any money, and if you needed like toothpaste or soap, you would submit a request, and then they would submit it to some central committee or something, and then it would be provided to you. And all the counselors would try to make us think this is a great system. They, oh, this is fantastic. If you need anything, you get it. And we're like, no, this isn't fantastic, because I mean, who the fuck cares about soap or toothpaste? It's all about candy. You know, it was a very unsatisfactory candy distribution system. And so let's say your parents sent you a care package with like candy and cookies and stuff in it. You had to turn it in right away. It was confiscated. And then every Saturday night, we'd go into this long line in front of this big bowl, and you had 3 seconds to pick out one thing. And there was a counselor stationed there to make sure you only took 3 seconds and one thing. So, so one night we're lining up for this thing. It's, you know, there's a lot of complaining about it, and all of a sudden one of the counselors gets up on a chair and he lets out this high-pitched, weird scream. It's kind of disturbing, and we're all thinking he's having a nervous breakdown or something. And he says to us, "You know what? I'm sick and tired of having to line up for candy every Saturday night. Why do we have to share everything? I mean, why can't we just buy what we want when we want it?" And we're like, yeah, he's right. And then he says, why can't we just, if I want a candy bar, why can't I just buy a candy bar? And we're like, yeah. And he says, if I want 10 candy bars, why can't I just buy 10 candy bars? And everybody's like, yeah. So then he jumps off the chair and he looks around the room, and it's like he's looking at each one of our 10-year-old hearts and minds, and he says to us, revolution. So that was the beginning, next morning, of Capitalism Day. So what they did was they passed out this fake money, and they said, we're going to auction off the whole camp. And basically you can all form corporations or, you know, make pacts with people. And then in the auction you can buy like the dining hall or the softball field or whatever, and then you can charge people to use it. So at first we're like, everybody's really into it. We're like sort of making all these plans and plotting our strategy. And then what's even better is they have this canteen, a store where you can buy candy. So everybody's like waving their coupons around and like, you know, buying a candy bar for 5 cents, this is 1967. And so a few people buy stuff, and then everything starts to go really wrong. They announce that the price just went up to 10 cents. And so a few more people buy stuff, and then it's like 25 cents and 40 cents. And we're like, oh, we can't afford this. This is ridiculous. And then the counselor who's manning the store, he tears the wrapper off the candy bar and says, 70 cents for 80 cents for a bite, 70 cents for a lick. And we all trail off. And then they have the auction. That's even worse, because what happens is, right before it starts, this counselor comes in, he's wearing a suit and smoking a cigar. And he says that he represents the Greed Corporation, which is all the counselors, and they have more money than all of us put together, and they buy up the whole camp. And it's like this capitalist dystopia. I mean, nobody can afford to do anything. And then they create this monetary crisis where some of the coupons have little circles on them, and if they have that circle, they're worthless. So I remember just thinking this 8-year-old just crying because he had seen his whole fortune just sort of go up in flames. And so finally, by dinner time, nobody can afford to go into the dining hall to eat dinner. And they tell us, okay, we're going to give you one more chance. We're going to put bags of money across the field, and you all have to get your hands and knees. And the first one there gets them, and we will call it the rat race. And of course, one of the counselors won, so that extinguish all hope. And then they throw moldy pieces of bread at us. And then the same guy who started the whole thing gets up and says, you know, I think we need to go back to the way things were. And we're all really hungry. We're like, yeah. And so that was the end of Capitalism Day. And from that point on, sharing everything good, private property bad. And the following Saturday night, we all line up again for our sad little piece of candy. And you know, the next year after that, I went back to that camp. And I went back the year after that. I really loved that camp. Thank you.